Welcome to the podcast Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook, where we will discuss the latest and most relevant business strategies to help you do one thing extremely well: sell more homes. We'll discuss everything from business planning to lead generation and conversion to past client customer service and everything in between. Join us for authentic conversations and nuts and bolts takeaways you can implement into your business today. And now, Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook. Kelly Cook is with us. He is back from his summer vacation, which very important that you plan that ahead of time and that you have some vacation time built into your yearly plan. But Kelly, I know that we talked about it a little bit about your time and your experience, but give the audience here just a quick little recap and maybe what you recommend that they do on one of their next vacations.
Absolutely. I'm going to make a post about this. I'm going to specifically talk about RVs. That's right. Cousin Eddie, right? RVs from Christmas vacation. Now, I made a ton of posts about our vacation, but I'm going to make a post specifically about why I think everyone should do an RV trip at some point in the year. It doesn't have to be in the summertime, but whatever works for you guys. But man, it is awesome. And if you have kids that are, high school age or younger, especially younger than high school age, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. They absolutely love it. They might tell you they hate it, but then it's funny when you look back on it, what the memories and then they look forward to. We're checking off national parks. That's what we're doing, right? So it's not just RVing to the beach, which is cool too, by the way. But we're going national parks and we're trying to check them all off the box. I think we're at 21 right now, so we have a ways to go. But it's a phenomenal thing to do. And the running theme of this is our coffee mugs. We always have. In the RV, it says, same bedroom, different view.
I love that. Yeah. So you're kind of taking, going through these, so you're sleeping in the RV, you're really getting kind of like a camping experience throughout all of these national parks, with a little bit better amenities than, pitching a tent out there. Yeah, a little glamping. It's great. And you're taking your kids, they're getting to see all these different parts of the world and of the United States.
Which is huge.
Let's go. Yeah, which is huge. The United States is giant. You're on 21 national parks already, and you've only stayed on pretty much the western half of the country.
Yes.
So insane. But kind of somehow I'm going to segue this into our topic of today. Say, same room, different view. It's all about reframing, right? You're reframing that picture of where you're going. I don't know if that worked, but today we're talking about reframing. And when we say that, we are talking about, not just necessarily your different views. You don't have to pack up the RV to reframe things. We're talking about how to handle some objections with your clients, how to kind of trick your mind almost into viewing things a different way, right? By the language you're using, by the questions that you're asking, you're reframing some mindset. So Kelly, let's get into that. What do you mean by that? And how does that help to overcome some objections? How can that help in your business?
Absolutely. And good setup on that, Elizabeth. I love the transition of the RV picture into the reframe aspect in real estate. And this will be quick, as all of our podcasts pretty much are. We just get right to it and give you a quick hitter so you can take that and use it in your business today. This is something that people don't talk about a lot. Some of y'all might do it without even knowing it because you're seasoned. Maybe you're experienced more, so you have the at-bats. But even then, you don't necessarily know you're doing it. And so what if you're more intentional about reframing? It's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. It's about not playing defense and not always being on the defensive mode. When you use a reframing aspect of communication, you're basically taking control of the conversation. And people want to be led. They're hiring an advisor, no matter what it is, right? Financial advising, insurance. Maybe it's a concierge at the hotel to get directions to the best restaurant, whatever it may be. You're hiring an advisor, and so they want to be led, but they think they want to do it a certain way because that's what they know. So you have to reframe them to get what the best result will be for them, right? They think it's what's in it for you, but it's really what's in it for them. So let me give you the two biggest reframes that you need to work on and be aware of, because these are the two things that happen the most in a conversation with, say, working with buyers and sellers, and especially sellers, and that is pricing and commission. So for example, let's give an example. The client that you're talking in the listing presentation to says, Well, I just I want to lower commission. Your commission is too high. And by the way, Tim down the street, who I spoke with yesterday, who's an agent, said he'd do it for 2%. Now, the easy thing is to just freeze up and do nothing, right? Or you could be like stutter around, like, well, okay, well, or you could say, okay, I'll match that,
I'll do it
or
for
okay,
2%. Yep.
I'll go even 1.75, right? I'll go lower.
Bargain.
But if you believe in your value you're going to bring, because the reality is as we all know, just because everyone has a real estate license doesn't mean we're all the same. The consumer thinks we're all the same because we're commoditized because we have a real estate license, and frankly, it's not that hard to get. So, be different. How do you be different? Take control of the conversation, reframe it yourself in the prospect's mind. So one thing you could do in that situation is say, oh, okay, Tim, I understand. So I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that you want a fair deal on fees so that you can get the best overall deal when it comes to the money, this time on market, the whole process being smooth all the way to the end, and someone just taking control of this thing so that you don't have to worry about it. Is that what I'm hearing you say? And a lot of times, I mean, I don't know what seller, even if the seller's like in sales themselves and they are like, okay, that was pretty good, let's say, they're probably still going to say some aspect of, yes, that's exactly what I want.
That's what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you say, okay, great. Well, that's what we are going to deliver for you on this process. I can't speak for Tim down the street and what he does, but I can't tell you that most of us are not created equal. And people have, 1 year compared to 20 years. But times are not always the aspect. Some people have been in the business 20 years and only sold 10 homes. Some people have been in the business 1 year and sold 20 homes. So it just depends. I can tell you my track record is X. And so we are going to deliver on all those things for you and give you, and really strike the balance of giving you the best deal possible all the way around so it's fair and equitable for all parties. And then you go into, and that's why we charge 2.5%. That's why we charge 3%. That's why we charge 3.25%, whatever it is. And so my goal is to make sure that I pay for that service fee, whatever it is, 2.5, 3%, and I am fully confident that I will. Now, would you like to proceed with getting the house on the market on Thursday or Friday of next week, or whatever, right? And you just like transition right into it. So it's just a reframe because there's someone else that's going to offer less. If someone's going to go 2, someone else will go 1.5. Then if they really, really want to, they can find someone to go 1. And if they really want to, someone will be a flat fee person out there, right? I've used that too as a reframe before where I said, well, if you're going to go with the 1.5% person, why would you pay that? And they look around and they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? Because it's cheap. I go, well, if you're going to go that route, there's no difference between the 1.5% person and the guy who charges a flat fee of $9.95. So I would just go with the 95 guy.
Doing it yourself almost at that point,
yeah,
like
100%.
potentially.
Fact,
yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'll do the Google search and give you the number of that person right now and save yourself even more money. But you won't. But will you be? Because the reality is you won't be, because we know the stats. We know, and that's a great stat, by the way. If someone's going to FSBO, I mean, my goodness, right? The stat between the FSBO's homes that sold our FSBO and other homes in America that were like agent assisted, I think it's around 13% more in terms of the average sales price across America. Another reframe is pricing. That's the other big objection that we get as agents, right? So let's say the house is really worth $450. All the data is presented. You present the data very well. And any unbiased person would sit there and go, yeah, $450 seems about right. But they say, well, I want to go for $500. My house is special. We've never heard that one before, right? Okay, maybe it is. But is it really worth $500? The data would suggest it's not. But they want $500. So instead of saying why do you want $500? Because it's a very combative way. What's a way you could reframe that conversation so it's not a why and combative with that person? So maybe you could say something like this. Okay, Mr. Seller, you want $500? I understand. Yeah, you do. Okay. So what would that getting $500,000 do for you by getting that price? You ask a question, right? You reframe it, and they go, well, it's blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times, then you start getting understanding that really there is no scientific reason to that whatsoever.
They just feel that way.
They feel that way. Sure. Would they like to have more money? Who wouldn't? Of course. But really does $450 get them to where they need to go next? Absolutely, because let's say they only owe $200 or something, right, on the house. So Well, okay, I understand that. So say, well, why 500? I don't think that's correct. I mean, look at the data here. The data would say that it's 450. You got to go with 450, right? No, no, no. That's not going to get them to agree to with you, right? But if you say, okay, I understand. So you want $500,000, and what would that do for you if we were able to get $500,000 for you on the sell of this house? And they say blah blah blah. You say, okay, I understand. And then you just and again, it's like, okay, and then what would that do for you? And then if you did that, okay, why is that important to you? Well, it's important because I got to get to my grandma to help her out because she's sick or something, whatever, right? Blah blah blah. And you just go, and then you turn back around and say, then you turn back around, and eventually you're going to say something like, well, if time really is important, because maybe that's what you find out by asking those questions, maybe that's even more important, equally as important. Then you say, then what if you went to 450? Because at 450, I could almost guarantee you we're going to sell this house within 30 days because here's the data that proves that. And what would that do for you then if you could actually be out of here in 30 days as opposed to, waiting out and holding out for 500? That sort of thing. And so there's ways to reframe that conversation. And other things we talked about too, those are the two big ones. But there's little things that you reframe all the time. You mentioned one too when we were talking earlier, Elizabeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that one you
I've
mentioned?
Yeah, and we've had conversations, surrounding this a little bit too, but I've heard Kelly talk about even in your own mindset. So reframe it for yourself in some cases, instead of prospecting calls or cold calling or whatever, because nobody likes to do that, right? You think, ugh, bad, don't like to do it, boring when you hear those words. But Kelly on his team reframes it as business development calls. Is that what it
Yes.
is? Business
Yes.
development calls. So just sometimes by changing that language, it helps to kind of rewire your mindset around it.
Yeah, that's an example of reframing. Another one I give you too, just off the cuff, would be when it comes to paying taxes, right? People say, "Well, I don't." There's these loopholes that other people take advantage of. Well, you can call them whatever you want to call them, but the reality is the tax code says you can do that. And so until the powers that be in Congress change that tax code, you can do that. Now you can call a loophole you want, but typically the person who calls it a loophole is the person who just doesn't want to educate themselves and figure out how to take
Take
advantage
advantage
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah. So it's just reframing your mind around certain things. And when it comes to back to real estate here in the conversation of getting and helping buyers and sellers, there's reframing you can do in so many different conversations, right? When it comes to negotiation on a purchase contract, when it comes to agent communication, when it comes to agent to client communication on repair items and what's reasonable and what's not. So there's all these things. And the worst thing you can do is just combat your client. Or even worse, if you know they're kind of out of line, just say, okay, and agree and go with it. Because ultimately, it's going to cause probably a deal to fall apart, a deal to never even materialize. And then you're out working even more hours for the same deal that could have been wrapped up hours and hours and hours ago, which then increases your value per hour.
And
Okay.
also can, hurt your trust, your reputation in some cases. If you just say okay and go along with whatever the client wants, even though you know that that's not what's going to get them the best result, at the end of the day, they don't end up with the best result, right? And then
Yeah.
who do they blame? Not themselves. It's you because you're the one that they're paying to be the advisor.
Yep. Yep. And by the way, we do a lot of this. If we're parents, anybody's a parent out there, you do a lot of that without even knowing it with your kids. Because again, at the end of the day, you know what's best for them and you have the best interest of them in mind. So if you act that way to your clients, what a great way to just run your business because you're like being a parent, even though they might be older than you, right? Because you know with your experience, expertise, you know what's best for them. So, but you can't just say, no. Now, as a parent, you can anyway with it, but they're going to cry. It's going to be a big deal. So, what if you, as a parent, then say, you reframe it, just so they maybe don't cry and they go, oh, okay, and they agree or whatever, right? So like this happens all the time. Just be cognizant of it because it'll help you increase your dollar per hour and your clients will love you for it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, if you want any more answers on how to reframe things or, anything else real estate related, I know that we've missed Kelly over the past couple of weeks. So, Kelly, where can they check out some of your posts about your RV vacation and potentially get in contact with you?
Yeah, check out Instagram at Kelly Cook Homes. Shoot me a DM there. I'd be happy to communicate with you on that platform or to shoot me a text 480-227-2028.
Yep. And if you all have any questions that, maybe you want us to talk about on the podcast to get into a little bit, go ahead and send those over there as well. And we'd love to take a look at those and talk about whatever's on your mind. So thanks, Kelly. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys.